Hi, I'm Laura Zervos, and I'm with you today to provide the nutrition component for Lending Hearts. I'm really excited to be here. Uh, I'm just going to wait another minute to allow for any registrants or participants to come on. Let me see if I see anything. Oh, they could join as we get started after we're started. So I'm really excited to be here today. February, as you know, is National Heart Month. So we want to take advantage of that and learn how to eat heart healthy. And there's many ways you could do that. You see so much out there, whether you're following a plant-based diet or you're having a mixed diet of lean proteins, vegetables, fruits, lots of leafy greens. That's also important. We just want to make sure, what are we leaving out of that? So I'm really excited today to talk to you because I have 4 great recipes. We're going to start with an apple crisp, and since we're short on time, we're going to get that in the oven right away. So I'm going to keep on talking while we're preparing these things. But this is a made over apple crisp. And what I like about this recipe, well, I'll tell you as we get started, we're going to use fresh apples. And I'll show you, I have cut up about between 5 and 6 apples, and I like to mix the variety. I have Macintosh in here, Granny Smith, and Honeycrisp. So it's nice to have a variety, and it depends on what you like. If you like them sweet or tart, you could pick whatever you like. So I have my apples, and what I'm going to do with those, I have them in my bowl. I'm going to add some cinnamon, and I will adjust my camera so you could see here. I'm going to add some cinnamon to that. And I'm also going to add a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And we're going to add some maple syrup. And that is all for this step, and we're going to mix those together so they get coated real nicely. Now, since I had to prepare these for my class, for our session today, what I did was when I cut them, I sprinkled fresh lemon juice on them to keep them from turning brown, so they stayed real nice for us. And what we're going to do next is we're going to pour them into a greased 8x8 pan. And we'll just spread them out like that. And we're going to mix up our crust. So right now we know we're talking about the nutritional content. We know that our apples are loaded with fiber, so that makes a nice choice for our fiber. We're also going to use oats. We're going to use almond flour. A cup of almond flour, a cup of oats, and we're also going to add a 3/4 cup of chopped walnuts. And if you remember from our earlier classes, the walnut is the nut that is the most high in the omega-3 fatty acids. In fact, in 1 ounce of walnuts, there's 2,500 milligrams of omega-3 fatty acids. So that makes them pretty much the second star of this show. So let's mix those all up first. Kind of give that a little stir so we have all of those ingredients nice. And we're going to add a little bit of cinnamon to this as well. Give that a stir. And then we're going to add 2 tablespoons of coconut oil, and that's in place of butter or other fats, just to give something here to make this a little bit crumbly. And the thing about that is the coconut oil is it just spreads so nicely and thin, so it'll make a nice moist crust on this. So let's keep stirring that together, and we're doing that in place of butter. Okay, and again, this whole recipe for 1 serving, and I believe we get 8 servings out of here, so pretty nice serving. It's going to be 300 calories, about 18 grams of fat, 4 grams of fat, so not too bad. That would be a little bit higher if we were using butter. Very low in sodium, only 2 milligrams of sodium, 32 grams of carb, which is really like 2 servings of apples if you think about it. and close to 7 grams of fiber and about 8 grams of protein. And that's because we're using the almond flour. So I have that nice and crumbly. What we're going to do now is just pour it over our apples. And that, don't worry if it doesn't look all mixed together, that coconut oil is going to gets into the oven and it will make a nice crust on there. So what I like to do is push it to the edges so it seals. That way our apples, they'll get nice and syrupy. You know, we don't want that syrup to escape, you know, from all those good things that from the cinnamon and the little bit of maple syrup that we put on our apples. So that looks good to go. Okay, I would make sure you, use something here just so these little things, these little extra oats don't burn in the oven for you. That was a good idea. You don't want to have anything on the side of your pan. All right, let's get that in the oven for 30 to 40 minutes. And we are ready for our next item. And our next item is a healthy turkey chili. And when we think about, let me back up a little bit, when we think about eating heart healthy, there's a couple of so-called diets that we could refer to. The first is called the DASH diet. You probably have heard of that one. It's pretty common. And what that stands for is dietary approaches to stop hypertension. So the main focus of the DASH diet, there's several, is to lower sodium and to lower fat. And of course, we want to increase the fiber. We want to increase the fruits and vegetables, but it gets a little bit more specific than the other diet that we're going to talk about a little bit later. But the DASH diet recommends about 2,300 milligrams of sodium, which right now is the recommended amount. More strict if you are sodium sensitive, and some of the population is sodium sensitive, so they might be on a 1,500 milligram diet. But if you are cooking at home, if you are using very few processed foods, foods that come out of a box, if you use a lot of scratch cooking, you will have no problem staying under that 2,300, no problem at all. So let's get started with our turkey chili, and we'll talk more about the DASH diet. Have all of our prep here today. Let me tell you what everything is before we get started. I'll show you my mise en place, and that's all of our prep work. So we have ground turkey, which is a great alternative to ground beef, much lower in saturated fat. We're going to use some black beans, kidney beans, onions, green peppers, garlic. And let's back up too to talk about, in addition to lowering the sodium and lowering the fat, the DASH diet is really about including foods that are rich in potassium, magnesium, and calcium, because those nutrients help to lower blood pressure. So when we talk about magnesium, the sources of magnesium, we're using them today, the beans. We have 2 different varieties of beans here, certainly dark leafy green vegetables, the grain group, which we're going to show a little bit more later. Being low in saturated fat, sure, we've got our turkey. Being low in sodium, I'm using low sodium chicken broth, and I'm using my own home canned tomatoes. I know that those are low sodium. In addition to that, we're not going to add any salt while in our cooking, but what we are going to do is add some fresh herbs and spices. And I think that makes all the difference versus you see on the shelf at the grocery store, you'll see a packet of chili seasoning or taco seasoning. It's so much easier to make your own. You know what's in it. You can control the sodium. So it's a great idea to do that. So let's get started. Let's put our stove on over here, and we're going to do the turkey chili in my Dutch oven. And while I'm talking about the turkey, this is something right after you brown the turkey, you could also put it in a crock pot and just let it cook for the rest of the day. So let's get that started. And we'll add a little bit of olive oil to our pan. And we'll add the turkey. And that was 2 pounds of ground turkey breast that we're using. Great alternative to ground beef, so much lower in fat. Let me go over the nutrition for this for you. We're talking 100, we're going to make, with that 2 pounds, we're going to make 6 servings. So 129 calories per serving, 3.8 grams of fat, which is 3.8 grams of fat, 0.4 grams of fat. Again, much higher if we were using red meat. Only 256 milligrams of sodium, 29 grams of carb, 11 grams of fiber. So we know our net carb is only 18, right? So we take that 29 of total carb minus the 11 fiber, and we're left with the 18 of net carb. It does have some sugar, and that's probably from the naturally occurring sugar that's in our tomatoes, and protein 12 grams. And that's a combination of the turkey and our beans here. So let's get started. Let me give that turkey meat a little stir while we're talking. Okay. So we want to make sure that our heat is on high, and we have added a little bit of fat to the pan. I used olive oil today. You could also use avocado oil, and that's very important because this turkey breast is very lean. It's not going to render any additional fat. We don't want it to stick. So we're also going to be adding our onions to this as well. So as soon as my turkey starts to brown on one side, or I should say become opaque, because it doesn't brown like beef, but it does become opaque instead of fleshy, that's when we're going to add our onions. So let me just turn this around, give this a little stir. Go for a minute there. We'll open our tomatoes. Let's talk about that. So this is from this fall, so late crop of tomatoes there. And we remove the ring, and we're going to take off our seal. Very important. If you don't hear that pop whenever you are opening your tomatoes, probably have an issue. Also, what you could look for, and if somebody were to give you a canned tomatoes or you canned your own tomatoes, you might see that it looks a little bit milky. You might see it looks a little bit bubbly in here, like there's something brewing that is not good. Also, the smell, you'll be able to smell. Whenever I open these, that's my favorite thing to do because it just smells like summer to me. So something fun to do. I always have everybody listen for the pop. And did you hear it? It made a nice little pop, and it looks beautiful inside. We don't have anything funny going on. They smell delicious. It does smell like summer. So we have everything ready, and it's nice to have everything, even when you're cooking at home. You know, and you hear me call this mise en place. Mise en place is a French term. It means everything in its place, and also the second part of that is a place for everything. So everything in its place is basically just having your prep readily available to you. So whenever you do go to cook, you read through your recipe. I tell that to clients that aren't familiar with cooking all the time. Read through the whole recipe so there's no surprises at the end. You didn't realize that you were supposed to do something, or reserve the pasta liquid, you know, for the end of the recipe, and you've already dumped it all out. So it's good to read through the whole thing. It's good to get everything together, put it on a tray for yourself. So when it does come time to cook, you could just go right through it. You have everything. You won't be missing any ingredients, and your recipe should turn out really good. So let's give this another little stir. It looks very nice. Like I said, it's becoming a little opaque, so we're going to add our onions to it. I have one medium onion, a Spanish onion, a white onion, any that you like. I typically don't cook with red onions, but that's something that you could use as well on these other ones, just to do a little bit better for you. And we'll give it another stir. Like I said, after you get your turkey cooked or browned, that's when you could add it to a crock pot if you didn't have time to stay at home. Something real nice to come home to at the end of the day. All right, keep giving that a stir. And I'm going to add a little bit more oil. That doesn't all getting soaked up by our turkey here. We do not want it to catch. So again, the DASH diet is looking to lower sodium, lower the fat, increase the nutrients, or I should say the minerals like calcium, magnesium, and magnesium, and potassium, of course. Potassium is really high in beans. It's in our pepper. It's in our tomatoes. So again, this recipe really checks all the boxes for being heart healthy. And of course, you could make a very heart healthy meal and then serve it with, you could do the opposite, right? We could add a lot of cheese to this. We could add corn chips to this at the end, but let's just keep it healthy. Some alternatives when we're done cooking this. So try to think outside the box. We could always use some Greek yogurt in place of sour cream, fresh chopped chives, which I have over there, we're going to put on at the end. Those are all great complements. So try to think out of the box. Always think, how can I improve this recipe to make it more heart healthy, just more healthy in general? So let's give our turkey another stir. It's doing really well. Okay, we're ready to add our ingredients. So we'll add our green pepper, kidney beans, black beans, and we're going to add our broth right before we add our spices. 1.5 cups of reduced sodium broth. And we had chili powder, oregano, and cumin. And those are really the basics of chili, of tacos. You know, those are the ones that are going to give you that flavor you're looking for. So that can be recreated at home. Don't feel like you have to buy it into a package. It's so easy to make it at home. And we'll just give this a nice stir, and then we'll add the tomatoes. And there's also a little bit of paste in there too today, since we are using the crushed tomatoes. It's going to give us a thin chili, so we're going to add a little bit of tomato paste just to thicken that up. And I'll let you show this what it looks like. Again, this is when you could put it into the slow cooker if you had wanted to. Our tomatoes together. We adjust the camera so you can see how nice this looks. Right now we have the turkey chili. And we have all of our spices in here. We have black beans, kidney beans, green peppers, onions, garlic. We're about to put our tomatoes in. We have the low sodium broth, and we have oregano, cumin, and chili powder. No salt. You could do that at the table if you need to add some, but I think that you're going to find that the spices in here really create a diverse taste. And we need 28 ounces of this, and this is a quart, so we're just going to reserve a little bit. Get stir in there. Very nice. We're left. Okay. And that looks really good. We'll get that back on the stove and let it cover. Probably won't be totally done by the time the class is over, but get a good idea of what it looks like. And I'm going to let that simmer. And we're going to get started on our next item, which is a shrimp stir fry. And I took the liberty before our class started to marinate the shrimp. And shrimp is really funny. So shrimp is, a lot of people think that that's not okay on a heart healthy diet because shrimp does contain cholesterol. But shrimp is actually extremely low in saturated fat, and it's high in protein. And it's actually saturated fat that is the thing that increases our cholesterol more so than dietary cholesterol does. So shrimp definitely safe on a heart healthy diet. The other thing about shrimp, it does not have as much connective tissue as does beef. So when it has less connective tissue, we don't want to marinate it for too long. I don't know if you've ever accidentally marinated shrimp for like overnight with something containing acid. It almost denatures the protein and cooks it. So, and it'll be a little bit mushy for you. So we only want to marinate our shrimp for, an hour or less. But if you're using a marinade that does not contain any acid, you might be able to get away with a little bit longer, but it really doesn't need that much time. You'll be surprised. So let me tell you everything that I'm going to grab that. Let's just move the prep and we'll bring over our prep, which has, of all the classes I've made, this one is smelled so good all morning long. And I think it's because of all the wonderful things that are in the shrimp stir fry. So let me just get that. I will adjust the camera so you could see everything that we have going on. And this is like, it's just as smells good as it is beautiful. This is our shrimp. So let me tell you what I put in our shrimp to marinate it. I took 1.5 pounds of shrimp. I peeled it and deveined it, and it's defrosted. After it was totally defrosted, I patted it dry really well with paper towels to get out any additional water or liquid. And then I put in 1/2 cup of olive oil, 1/2 cup of reduced teriyaki sauce, a teaspoon of ginger, a teaspoon of garlic, some crushed red pepper flakes, a tablespoon of brown sugar, and a tablespoon of white vinegar. And so that's been marinating. And that's also, we're going to reserve that marinade and we're going to use it at the end. And that's going to be the base for our stir fry sauce. So again, a great alternative. You didn't hear me say salt in there. We're using the low sodium teriyaki sauce. That should give us enough flavor. So a great alternative to a store-bought stir fry sauce where you could find a lot of extra fat, sodium, and sugar. And we do have the brown sugar in here. So let me tell you, per serving, that's only 9 grams of sugar for the whole serving, 279 calories, 14 grams of fat, only 2 sat fat, 550 milligrams of sodium, 17 grams of carb, and 2.5 fiber, 9 grams protein. So like I said, an excellent source of protein. We're going to get a lot of fiber with all these vegetables, also calcium, magnesium, and our potassium. So again, and plus trying to fulfill that vegetable requirement for the day too, we're going to check all the boxes with this meal. It's a fantastic meal. We could pair it when we're serving it. We could put it over brown rice to get even more fiber. We could put it over quinoa. We could put it over cauliflower rice if we're really watching the carbohydrates and we want to add another vegetable. That's a great alternative. Or you could just eat it as it is. I might want to sprinkle a couple of scallions on it or something at the end. But anyhow, let's get cooking our stir fry. So again, let me rearrange our stove here so we can get going. That chili's pretty heavy. And you could use avocado oil, you could use olive oil to saute your shrimp, and anything like that's fine. So what I'm going to do is we're going to cook our shrimp first, and then we're going to take it out and do our vegetables, and then we'll do everything together. And that's just because some things take a little bit longer than others to cook. So we want to make sure we cook the things like today too. Let me tell you, I'll show you. Let's see. All right. Okay, so let's see. We have broccoli, which is going to take a little bit longer to cook. We have our scallions that we're going to put on top. Let me move those to the side. We have carrots. Those take a little bit longer as well. Mushrooms and peppers, not so much. They don't take very long. We do have our onions. I'll probably add those early. And we also have, I opened up cans of baby corn, water chestnuts, and bamboo shoots. So all they don't really need cooking. They just need to heat up. They're pretty much good the way they are. So let me get a slotted spoon so I could remove the shrimp out of the marinade, because we just want to get the shrimp. And then we're going to set those aside and do our vegetables to the desired doneness. And then we'll put it all together with our marinade, thicken it up with a little bit of a slurry, and we'll be good. So let's get started. And I'm just going to try to, doesn't seem like it's hot enough here. Let's get a little bit hotter. Try to get my shrimp out. And the other thing too, it's nice to have these the last hour while I was waiting for class to start. I let these sit out so they would come to room temperature. So it's not going to lower my temperature of the oil. And if you have just a few at a time, that won't happen. The last thing you would want to do would just to add frozen shrimp right to our pan. It's going to lower your oil. It's going to increase your cooking time. It's not going to do the product that you're looking for. So I just like to add a couple at a time. It smells wonderful. I wish you could smell this between everything that was in there. And if you wanted, you could use scallops in here instead. You could certainly use chicken breast if you don't care for shrimp or seafood. We're just trying to provide some alternatives for beef. We're trying to keep low in saturated fat. And the shrimp aren't going to need too long. It's basically till they become opaque. Right now they're fleshy. Basically, maybe 2 minutes on each side, 2 to 3 minutes. If your skillet's nice and hot, your oil's nice and hot. And we're just going to, like I said, when you read through the recipe to see everything that you're going to do, we want to reserve this. Now, we can reserve it because at the end, we're going to bring it up to temperature. It's going to come to a boil. The time that you don't want to use, you'll see often in recipes, to discard the marinade. That's if you're grilling something and the meat has been raw meat has been sitting in your marinade, and the meat's cooking and it's almost done. And right at the end, you go ahead and dip in that raw meat juice and put it back onto the meat itself, and it doesn't have enough time to come to temperature. But we are going to bring this up to a boil, so there's no danger there. We're just going to give this a turn here. So I'll show you in 1 second here. Just turn on each side, and you're going to be good. You don't want to overcook shrimp. And I really hesitate telling people whether they're boiling shrimp or whether they're sauteing shrimp. I really don't like to put a time limit on it. When we're boiling shrimp, sometimes people say, 5 minutes for that batch of shrimp, or 10 minutes after it's done boiling. Really, once you put your shrimp in, once one of them comes to the top, you're done. They're all done. And the same with these shrimp. Once you start seeing that they're opaque on both sides, we're done. So it might not necessarily have a specific time. It can vary. These are 21-24 size shrimp, which means you get 21 to 24 per pound. So if you're using a smaller shrimp, it should cook quicker. If you're using a larger shrimp, like extra jumbo, it might take longer to cook. And again, if I would have cut these in half, it might have taken less time. Sometimes I cut the shrimp in half, but most often I just do it whole. Sometimes I just like to see, it makes it easy when I'm trying to portion everybody's plate. Does everybody have so many shrimp on their plate? Just to make sure everybody's getting all the protein that they need. Okay, so I'm going to let this go for another minute, and I will show you what it looks like. And I only added a little bit of oil to our pan, but a little bit of the marinated came out of the shrimp. So there's a little bit more liquid in the pan, which is fine. And like I said, we're going to reserve that shrimp, and then we're going to stir fry our vegetables. So let me have our bowl here. We'll put the shrimp in here when we remove it, and we'll just set that aside. You could, if you do the vegetables first, you could do either one first. It really doesn't make a difference. The only reason I don't like to do the vegetables first is because I like them to be colorful. and a little bit al dente, a little bit firm to the bite. So if we do them first and then they sit aside, then you want to cover them, but if you cover them, they'll continue to steam and cook and they could become mushy. So I tend to like to do the shrimp first, set that aside. It'll come back up to temperature very quickly. What they look like. Hot holder. And they're nice and opaque. You can see they're white. They're not fleshy any longer. So we're gonna, and did you see how much liquid I got out of there? I only put a few tablespoons. It's gonna be hard to show you that. But there's a good bit of liquid that came out from the marinade. So I'm just going to leave that in there. I'm going to remove my shrimp. Set that aside. And there's enough liquid in there. I'm just going to add my vegetables into there with the oil as well. And start with those bigger vegetables. Like I said, the onions, things that take a little bit longer to cook, and the broccoli. Well, probably the carrots too. And I like to cut my carrot on the bias, and that's just cutting at an angle so you get a nice little thin strip here, nice and easy to eat. I like to remember, we talk about it all the time, to try and keep everything the same size. You know, everything, the mushrooms, the peppers, everything the same size. So it takes about the same time to cook. And among the different vegetables, and then among the mushrooms themselves, try to get all your mushrooms the same size, all your broccoli the same size. I see I have a couple rogue pieces of broccoli here, but again, I just used the florets because I was using the stalks in another recipe, but they're all pretty much the same. Again, remember when we cut our broccoli, you see, I don't have a knife here. When we're cutting our broccoli on the cutting board, you just want to cut into it until you get into that first little divide, I should say, and then just pull it apart, right? See, nothing, we didn't lose anything. If we just have a cutting board and we're just trying to cut all these pieces, I guarantee when you lift up all your florets, there's going to be a million of these little things that we just lost on the cutting board. So again, just real gently cut into, you get to that first joint and then pull apart real nicely. The same with cauliflower. That way you don't lose all this beautiful product. So I'm going to go ahead and add this to our vegetables. Give those a stir. And if you have a wok, that works very nicely too. Would have been nice to have a wok for our demonstration today, to have it on some electric, maybe a oven or something. I've also done this demonstration at senior citizen centers and other places, and we just do it right into an electric skillet. So that's not a different way that you could do it. But this is looking really nice. A little bit of oil. They can get coated. And the next I'm going to add our mushrooms and peppers. And again, I'm not putting a lid on here. I don't want to steam these. I just want to lightly stir fry them so they're nice and crisp. So while they're cooking, and what I like about this meal, it's very colorful. We have all of our vegetables in here. We have a good protein. Okay, they're looking really good. They're starting to become a little tender. All right, so while that's working, we're going to make our slurry. And our slurry today is going to be made from cornstarch and water. And the proportions that we're using today is 4 tablespoons of cornstarch and a ½ cup of water. So basically 1 tablespoon per ounce. So we'll put that in there. You want to make sure that your water is nice and cold. And what this is, instead of using a roux like you would to thicken other things, typically in Asian cooking, you would use this because cornstarch and water gives a nice shiny, not only does it thicken, but it gives a nice shiny, glossy sauce that we're looking for. Get a small spoon, just stir this. Mix this with my hands just to make sure that the cornstarch is totally dissolved. You could feel it in there. And I probably took too long talking about it, but keep stirring it up. It will all dissolve. I didn't have to use my fingers, and you can see how nice and opaque it is. And we're going to use that at the end. And I could feel that there's no residue on the bottom. So that'll give us a nice, you know, it'll thicken up real nicely, but not too thick. It'll still be a thin sauce, but it will have a little bit more, a little bit of viscosity to it. So you'll see it on the back of the spoon, but it won't be like super thick like a stew. We're just looking for a nice light sauce, but something that has a little bit of body. And isn't it wonderful with all of that sauce into the broccoli that we were just talking about. So I'm going to show you what this looks like because it's perfect right now. And this is what I was talking about by not steaming them, our vegetables stay nice and bright. So they're real nice and bright. And that's exactly what we're wanting. We're ready for our canned vegetables. Again, water chestnuts, bamboo shoots, and baby corn. And I did drain off the liquid and rinse them. But again, the sodium was 550 milligrams, so not bad. For 1/3 of our intake, you were still, if all 3 of your meals were 550, you would still be well under the 2,300 milligram sodium recommendation. So I'm going to give this a little bit of a stir. Stir these things in. And before I put our shrimp in, I'm going to put in our reserved marinade. And we'll make our sauce too. Might just be a little bit easier to. Again, and that was the olive oil reduced sodium teriyaki sauce, ginger, garlic, red pepper, brown sugar, and vinegar. And that makes a really nice homemade marinade. And you could adjust any of those if you like. You could adjust the sugar a little bit if you like. You could, if you're not a big fan of ginger, you don't have to use that. This looks wonderful. I'm going to add our shrimp back in. And then I'm going to add our slurry to thicken it. And you'll have to keep an eye. This should be thin enough, but if it's too thick for you, you can always add a little bit of chicken broth, which is what I may do. You can always add water. But low sodium chicken broth in our other recipes. I think I'm going to add a little bit of that, a little bit thicker than that, right? Chicken broth right here. A little bit. And it's boiling, so I know that my marinade is cooked. Chicken stock, you may want to let it cook a little bit longer to make sure everything's through and all the flavors have a chance to absorb. But let me show you what that looks like so you can see. Here, so nice and colorful. And again, the nutrition on this is phenomenal. It meets checks all the boxes for a heart healthy recipe. Really tasty too, which is so important because what if it checks all the boxes, but you don't like the way it tastes? So important to have something that you really enjoy. Turn this down and let that continue to come together. And we will put that on our serving dish. And let me just talk a little bit more about the DASH diet and the Mediterranean diet. And then we're going to make one more thing, and then we'll look at everything and plate everything. Let me move my prep plate here. My next item while we're talking. So again, we have the DASH diet. In case you joined late, the DASH is dietary approaches to stop hypertension. The main point of the diet is to lower dietary sodium and saturated fat, and also provide foods that contain magnesium, calcium, and potassium because they're known to lower our blood pressure. So what you would like to do is, try, and that DASH diet also encourages keeping our sugar to, I believe, 100 milligrams a day, which works out to be about 25 grams, which is excellent. And if you're doing that, if you're monitoring your sugar intake, I would tell you that that's good. And if you were to have, if your number is a little bit above that, but it's because you were eating apples and raspberries and fruits and oranges, that it's okay to go over that number. That's really the added sugar number that we're getting from some other things. That's the one that you want to watch. It's not so much the one that's occurring in fruit. Also, okay, so we talked about the nutrients, we talked about sugar, alcohol. The other thing is alcohol should be in moderation. For men, these numbers might seem a little high to you, but moderation by definition is 2 servings a day for men and 1 serving a day for women. It's also recommended that you eat the 5 servings of fruits and vegetables per day. Hold on, I hear this is really going. That down. The other thing, so alcohol, sugar, fiber, 25 to 35 grams of fiber today, women around 25, men to 35. And the only reason for that difference is men typically eat more calories than women. It's not that they need 10 more grams. It's that it's based on the number of calories that they eat. The DASH diet also gives some recommendations based on a 2,000 calorie diet about having 5 servings of fruits and vegetables. It also encourages grains as a part of our diet as well. And that's because those are rich in magnesium. What's different about the Mediterranean diet is the Mediterranean diet focuses, while DASH is limiting fats, the Mediterranean says, hey, it's okay to have olive oil, avocado, salmon, and fats from those kind of sources, where DASH is like, let's still keep it to 30%. They don't really go against each other, but there's just some things that the one diet emphasizes that the other one kind of doesn't address, I should say. So the other thing about the Mediterranean diet is it encourages fish 2 to 3 times a week, where DASH doesn't specifically say that. They say to eat lean proteins, lean cuts of beef, lean cuts of chicken and pork, and of course fish. And the Mediterranean diet is like, okay, the main source of protein, you should be having fish 2 to 3 times a week. Our shrimp certainly gets in that category. The next protein that would be favored would be poultry, and of course lean cuts of pork. And at the very top of the Mediterranean food guide pyramid, if you will, is red meats and processed foods. So the Mediterranean diet is very low in red meat, where it is allowed on the DASH. Of course, you want to choose lean cuts, but still, it's not as it's limited more on the Mediterranean diet. And let's think about it. It's just because look where those countries are in the Mediterranean diet. They're on the ocean, right? So the Mediterranean diet is going to be a little bit different in Italy as it is in Greece. It is in other countries that are in that area. Everybody has their own little take on it. But what we do notice is, of course, is the olive oil, the fish, the frequency of the fish, the frequency of fresh fruits and vegetables, grains that are whole grains, not processed like we have in the Western world, and very little processed foods. So those are the main differences. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat, or you're welcome to turn on your microphone and we could answer those. Also, the foods that are at the center of DASH, they're naturally low in sodium, but so are they in the Mediterranean diet as well. The Mediterranean diet is also on eating with others, enjoying our food, you know, not necessarily eating at our desk or eating on the run or eating in our car. So that's where their main focus is as well. And then they go with the food recommendations, you know, and they both recommend eating a serving of legumes, which are also high in magnesium and the omega-3 fatty acids. Like we said, our walnuts that we put into our apple crisp. And let me just take a peek at our apple crisp, and then we'll make our last item. So let me just take a peek and make sure this is good. So it's 40 minutes and our apple crisp is done and it's perfectly browned on top. And again, apples and cinnamon and a little bit of maple syrup and vanilla on the inside. Let me shut off my timer. It's going to keep on going off. And then let me tell you about the topping. The topping was a cup of almond flour, a 3/4 cup of walnuts, and we said before that walnuts were the highest. Are both canola, vegetable, and olive oil? Oh no, they're not. Okay, and we'll hit that. I had a question from somebody for cholesterol. Are both canola, vegetable, and my question just went away. Let me see if I can get it back. I think the question was, are they all the same for your cholesterol level? And no, not all oils are created the same. Are both canola, vegetable, and olive oil all the same? No, olive oil is higher in monounsaturated fats. The other two are not. So the other two, will they raise your cholesterol? No. Are they? Let's see. Let me see how to answer that for you. The things that are going to raise cholesterol are saturated fats. And that is anything, a fat that is hard at room temperature. So if you've ever made something, I made pulled pork for my family a week ago, right? It's in the crock pot. I put the pork on the table. I go over to the crock pot 10 minutes later, and there's white fat in the bottom of the pot. That's fat. That's what increases our cholesterol. These oils that you're talking about, canola, vegetable, and olive oil, should not raise your cholesterol at all. Olive oil is the best because it's the most heart healthy, because it contains the most monounsaturated fat. It has the nicest profile out of all three of them. Canola and vegetable are sometimes used to make margarines. We know that they're saturated. They're also used to make shortening, which is saturated. So in that sense, if you're talking all liquid, they're okay. Olive is the healthiest. Also, avocado is healthy. And the other two have their purpose, because if we want to saute something on the stove, like something quickly, like our shrimp that we just did, you could do olive oil. If you're going to saute something that takes a little bit longer, olive oil has a much lower smoke point, and it's going to smoke a lot faster than the other two that you have there. So they all have their place and their purpose. They could all be part of a healthy diet. It's just a matter of their individual profiles. The ones that are dangerous are the ones that are high in saturated fat, which are the ones that are hard at room temperature. So ways to get around that: if you're making a pot of beef vegetable soup, if you let it cook on the stove all day, say you used a nice cut of meat in there, even a soup bone, and you put it in the refrigerator, and the next day you have that nice layer of fat on there, which is giving it flavor, right? But a lot of fat. You could take that fat right off of there and skim it off. The same with, like what I was talking with the pulled pork. If you were going to eat it leftover, definitely do not eat the white stuff that you see in your container if it's in there. We want to make sure that we're not having those things. And you'll see that with beef, with lamb, with pork, and a lot with heavily saturated things like bacon or sausage. If you ever, you'll see the grease that's left in a bacon pan, and it's liquid at one moment, and then you go back after it's cold and it's, white and hard, and that's what's saturated, and that's what's not good for us. So let me check. We're ready for our last little item here, and this is This is one of my favorite things to do with leftover brown rice. And even if you were out somewhere and you have some brown rice left over, or you have it left over from the day before, this is a great way to use it. I made this for a friend one time for her breakfast, and she said it was like a warm hug. It's so easy to make. You take 1 cup of cooked brown rice, put it in a microwave safe bowl. We add 1 cup of unsweetened almond milk, and almond milk, if you remember, is very high in calcium, 450 milligrams. Regular cow's milk, about 285 milligrams for 1 cup. So it's an excellent choice. You're not sacrificing calcium. You do have to read the label. Not all brands are created equal. Most store brands are pretty good. Most of them are 450 milligrams. I have seen a few of those store brands of almond milk, and you have to look too. Oh, almond versus soy milk for cholesterol. Okay, that's an excellent question. I would say that those two are created equal. We have a question, is almond milk or soy milk the effects of cholesterol? I would say they would be the same. What I would say would be different, because they're both plant-based. What I would say would be the two to compare would be like almond milk versus cow's milk, especially when you get into full fat dairy, because full fat dairy is very high in saturated fat. Full fat cheese, full fat yogurt could have fat, full fat milk. Those have more fat in them, especially the cheese. That one definitely has the saturated fat in it. So that's something to limit. But almond milk versus soy milk, both good alternatives. And if you have any issues, if you have any issues with soy, sometimes people with thyroid issues have an issue with soy. You might want to try one of the plant-based milks like almond or oat. If you have a nut allergy, maybe soy is better for you. But I think it's a matter of taste too. I think right now everything tastes much better than it did probably a decade ago. These recipes are, there's an unsweetened vanilla, there's plain unsweetened. They all have a much better taste. So let's finish up our recipe here, and let me spoons. What we're going to do, in addition to, we have our almond milk and our rice, and we're going to add, and this is up to you, I'm going to add a half teaspoon of maple syrup, tablespoon of dried cranberries, tablespoon of almonds, slivered almonds, and I'm just going to put some cinnamon on here. I'll show you here, just a little sprinkle of cinnamon. I like this. I think that's what kind of puts it over the top. And we're just going to microwave it for 1 minute. And I will pull over my chili for you too. That looks, oh wow, that's really good. Going a little bit, it's boiling a little vigorously. And then we'll also get everything plated, and I will show you. That little cereal that we saw, so we're getting the brown rice and the fiber, and our fiber from the brown rice, magnesium, calcium in the almond milk, a little bit of omega-3s in the almonds, not as much as walnuts. Walnuts are the highest. And what else do we have in there? A little bit of sweet from the cranberry. I have another question. Oh, somebody's been doing overnight oats, doing something like this. Well, the little milk, the little hot cereal that we're making right now. Is peanut butter bad to add? No, I don't think peanut butter is bad to add. It's especially whatever kind you choose, because there's a lot of natural peanut butter, and if you look at the labels, it's just simply peanuts, right, that they've put through the processor and have extruded. So I think that's fine. You want to watch out for added salt, added sugar, those kind of things. But no, I think it's really good. I also like some of the peanut butter powders that are out there. that you could add to a smoothie, that you could add to your steel cut oats. They will give you all of the protein and a little bit less fat. So that's a nice alternative too. But no, peanut butter is not bad to put on that. It will give you a little extra protein and it will give you some fat. So you already have all of the carb from the oats, right? So you're kind of balancing out that meal. I have no problem with that. Let me get our little brown rice cereal that we made. And this smells so good with the cinnamon on it. And it's just so simple. I'll just stir it up here. And it doesn't get thick, so it's not like an oatmeal or anything, but the raspberry, the cranberries plump up real nice when you heat them, and you get a little bit of crunch from the almonds, and it's just a real nice little mix. And let me see, I'm pretty sure I have the nutrition for that one on my website as well. I don't have it right in front of me, but it's a nice little great way to use a leftover, right? I don't like to waste, especially now everything is so expensive. It's you feel bad if something goes badly in the refrigerator, so good to use everything. So let's plate our stir fry and peek at our stir fry on one of my favorite serving dishes. Beautiful. And again, I'll either serve this with brown rice tonight or quinoa or cauliflower rice. But you see our broccoli is still nice and green. Our peppers are still colorful, our carrots, everything is still nice and colorful. So just want to cook that real quickly, and it's still tender. And I think we've got the right consistency here with our sauce, not too thick, not too thin. So we have that. And let's get our chili. Take a peek at that. Apple crisp looks good. We'll have to cut into our apple crisp before we sign off, just to see what it looks like inside. Share that. Our chili looks very good. Again, chili could probably cook another hour or so, but it still looks very nice. And it's getting a nice color and it smells delicious. It smells really good. Wonderful. So remember, oregano, cumin, garlic powder, all make a very nice substitute for some of the commercial seasonings you see for tacos and chili powder too. Chili, oregano, cumin, and garlic. They make a real nice spice. And then you're in control of how much sodium is in here. And let's just open up our and again, this is good. It's crumbly, but our apples are cooked real nicely. And again, you could put some Greek yogurt on this. That would be really nice. That would be a good topping, or just leave it plain the way it is. That looks really good. So we have our cereal, our chili, our stir fry, and our apple crisp. So they check all the boxes for being heart healthy, all great things that you could do. And remember, if you're trying to make over a recipe, look at it and see where is it coming from? Where is the saturated fat coming from? Is it coming from butter? Then use olive oil. Is it coming from red meat? Choose something differently. Is it coming from cheese? Maybe you try something different than the cheese, or try omitting that cheese for a while. Is same, with sodium. Where's the sodium coming from? Is it coming from actual salt that we're putting in the recipe? Is it coming from regular broth? Is it coming from, are we using something from our pantry like a convenience item that has a lot of sodium? And trying to come up with, using a different spice blend, some low sodium broths. You could certainly look at, juices. Sometimes orange juice will give a nice flavor. Marinades, excellent. Look at our marinade that we had today. Again, you could just play around with these things. Does sodium affect cholesterol is a question that we have. No, it does not affect cholesterol, but it can affect high blood pressure. It can affect our blood pressure if we're sodium sensitive. but it does not affect our cholesterol. The things that affect cholesterol are saturated fat. And saturated fat is again found it's that hard fat at room temperature. It's found in butter, full fat dairy, red meat, processed meats, sausages, bacon are all high in saturated fat. Those are good. Those are high. Typically, the foods that contain cholesterol do not raise our cholesterol as much as we thought they did a few decades back, or maybe 3 decades back. We have another question. What about sugar? Okay, yes. Well, sugar can cause inflammation. Too much sugar in our body can cause inflammation, and it has inflammatory properties. I've seen this too in practice, that how it relates to cholesterol. Okay. The question is really, how does sugar relate to cholesterol? And I would say that it doesn't have a direct effect on our cholesterol, but it does have an effect on concentrated sweets and other things have an effect on our triglycerides. So maybe not cholesterol, but concentrated sweets have a definite effect on our triglycerides and can increase that number, not necessarily our cholesterol. If that answers your question. But it does not. The other thing that you could say is having a diet, the DASH diet too, we don't want to go over our total calorie limit for the day too, right? So having extra calories can cause problems with some of these other things. So just want to, sugar is a source of empty calories, so it's not good. But again, for the direct relationship with sugar and cholesterol, I don't believe there is one, but there definitely is one with triglycerides. They are definitely increased with concentrated sweets. So any other questions? Well, I'm so glad that you came today. It was really nice having this talk. Again, all these recipes are online. I'm going to add some of these pictures. Thank you so much. It was really nice to be here today. And like I said, if you need any recipes, or if you have a recipe that you want to modify, maybe a family favorite recipe, certainly send it to me and we'll modify it together. We'll get the nutrition information on it. If you have a recipe right now and you're wondering if it's okay, we could figure out all of those nutrients for you and see how that fits into your plan. So, all right, have a wonderful day.